to the city, baby. When you see us, so you know you really viewing greatness in the making. Double up on facts we stating. Podcasting, cruise control, city, state, the nation. So what you saying, what we saying, prime information. Facts, keys to the city, we unlocking the statements.
Streaming every Friday.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Clovercrest Media presents Keys to the City. We are streaming on all social media platforms, including Twitch at Keys to the City. So subscribe, comment, share, and like. Before we get into the NFL carousel, the quarterback carousel, another pandemonium, chaos, bedlam. That's what awaits us for this NFL offseason. And then we'll talk some baseball. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame. But before we get into this, I'm sorry, guys, I have to ask, how's the beautiful weather up in Connecticut today? Is it nice today?
It's actually really nice. It actually makes you stronger as a human being.
Oh, yeah?
It is so cold out that I've been inside all day.
So Ted says that it makes you a stronger human being. Joe reacts with, I am so cold, I don't want to go outside.
I loved it. I already cashed in all my beer cans.
How cold are you, though?
I'm actually not cold at all. It actually felt good. I actually had a hot shower today for the first time all week, which was really nice.
You got hot water now?
Just for today. I guess when it's the coldest, a hot shower works. And then during the week, I had cold shower.
Yeah,
but no, realistically, I cashed all my
cans in. Hot showers. I finally get hot showers.
Hit the gym, got a great sweat in. And then I walked out breathing smoke, and I was like feeling great. Felt like a new man. I feel tremendous.
And Joe hasn't been out of his house today.
Well, think about it.
I went out on my back porch. It is. I'm not wearing socks. I'm just wearing slippers.
Listen,
my ankles were dying.
True athletes love the cold. True athletes love the cold. Cryotherapy, baby. Just like LeBron James. You go out there and you make your body stronger. You rejuvenate your body. I feel like a true champ.
It looks pretty good over there. You got that nice sun over there, palm trees. But like I said, what a offseason awaits us for the NFL. I know that we still are a week and a half away from Super Bowl 55, but boy, oh boy, what does the NFL do better than any sport in the world is they dominate the headlines. Sorry, MLB. Sorry, NHL. Sorry, NBA. For the next couple months, the NFL will once again dominate, even though there's not going to be any action on the field. But we're going to start off with this crazy offseason in the sense of all the quarterbacks. Think of a year ago, Ted, I think it was you on the show that said you would say most of the teams were pretty set with their quarterbacks, we thought.
I said this year, bud.
Even this year, even coming into this year, we all thought that most of the league was pretty set with their quarterback situation. Now, about 4 or 5 months later, we're talking about a situation where we've never seen before, where quarterbacks that we thought the 49ers, the Rams are the newest team to come out. You got the Jets. You have all these teams that we thought had set quarterback situations. But now look at it all. Look at all the names. And yes, I'm going to even put the great Aaron Rodgers in there because no matter what people want to say, that man, I do not believe he wants to stay in Green Bay anymore. I think he wants to venture out, and it will be interesting. I know Deshaun Watson is the main name in this whole offseason situation. But we have to keep an eye on where Aaron Rodgers wants to do because we don't know. He's an unpredictable type guy.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Think about this, you two. The only confident team that you could say in the NFC East that has their quarterback is the Giants. You don't know what's going to go on with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. You don't know the situation in Philly. Is it going to be Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts? So to think a year later, 10 months later, that the only team really confident, well, not really confident in their team, but you know really who's going to be the quarterback next year is the New York Football Giants. And sorry, the Giants are not trading for Deshaun Watson. That's not what the New York Giants do. So any Giant fan
you can only dream.
Listen, they're not the Yankees. They're not the Mets. They're not the Jets. They don't look for the headline news. That's not what the Giants do. They never have. They never will. When's the last time you could ever think about the Giants ever making a huge splash? They don't do that. Their biggest splash was trading for Eli Manning. All right. And that was a draft day situation where they got their quarterback. Other than that, the Giants don't do things like this. So to think about where we are at 12 months later, when I talk to you, Trev and Joe, we have talked about this numerous times with teams, and we always seem to talk about the quarterbacks, is every team in this league is trying to get better, okay? That's what Tampa Bay did. They got Tom Brady. There's about 4 or 5 sure teams in the league that have a quarterback. You would have said Green Bay a week ago. They're the other team. after losing that NFC Championship game, there's questions in Green Bay. Now, do I think Aaron Rodgers is going anywhere? Absolutely
Well, I
not.
think there was questions circulating since they drafted Jordan Love. Because once they did that, that kind of just added like, okay, what's the timetable now for Aaron Rodgers? No matter how great he's been, what's the timetable the night they drafted Jordan Love? That's when it got all interesting with Green Bay. And now it just adds a whole nother element because the way they lost, and you know how frustrated he has shown when he goes on these podcasts and he's talking with other people. That's what I'm saying. Aaron Rodgers, I know he says, oh, well, he's not going anywhere. Just you got to keep an eye on it. You can't ever say, you never say never because it is possible. What do you think, Joe? I mean, as a fan that watches this game and you see all these quarterbacks that we once thought seemed all set, like San Fran a year ago, they were in the Super Bowl. Now, a year later, they're looking for another quarterback. 2 years ago, the Rams looked like they had Jared Goff for the future. Now, we're coming out reports this week, they might be trying to move on. So,
or an open quarterback competition.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, I think a lot of that is just your local media hyping it up. You know, we asked the question amongst ourselves before the show started, why would Deshaun Watson want to go to the Jets? That seems like a silly thing to do and counterproductive to what he wants, which is success. So I don't know that I buy that. You could also argue that the problem with the 49ers this year was the injuries on both sides of the ball and deep into their depth chart. Mm-hmm. I still think Jimmy G's a very serviceable quarterback for what the 49ers are trying to do. Would you want to upgrade? Well, sure. Who wouldn't? But at what cost? What is it going to cost you to go out there and get Deshaun Watson? It's not going to come cheap. We know that.
Yeah, but I feel like that's a team with all those injuries coming back. You get a Deshaun Watson, you put the 49ers right back at the top of the NFC.
But if you give Jimmy G and he's healthy and you give him everybody back, they were in the Super Bowl a year ago. How?
Let me ask you this. Hold on, Joe. Let me ask you this. It's kind of like the Lamar question. Do you trust Jimmy G enough to make the play? And he had the opportunity a year ago to make a play and win a Super Bowl for the 49ers, and he blew it. And he didn't have that opportunity. Like you said with Lamar, do you trust him enough with Jimmy G as your quarterback that you can win a Super Bowl with him?
I put him closer to Kirk Cousins, Drew. To be honest with you, because Lamar has the MVP. Jimmy G's never played like an MVP. And so
my whole point is, do you trust him enough to make that play?
I'm looking at paying a great quarterback, and I'm looking at this article I sent you. It says, well, here's the problem you face. You want to play. Here's the difference that these teams have to face. No problem. You want to pay Matthew Stafford $125 million? You want to pay Derek Carr, who was at one point the highest paid quarterback? Where are you at with Derek Carr and Matthew Stafford? Where are you at with Jared Goff? Where are you at Jimmy G? Where are you at with Kirk Cousins, Jacoby Brissett? All these quarterbacks that I just named are average quarterbacks, all right? Now, Jimmy G got to the Super Bowl because of two things. Kyle Shanahan is a phenomenal offensive coordinator and a great leader and coach, and they had a phenomenal defense, and it propelled them all the way to the Super Bowl. Joe, I don't honestly think that could happen year in and year out. So how do you make up for a subpar defense? How do you make up for a subpar running game? You have a quarterback who's extraordinary, who's like the ace card in the deck. He's the ace in the card. That, like, Mahomes makes up for no running game. Josh Allen, the Bills had no running game, but Josh Allen was so special that he was able to. Lamar's ability are they good enough? And I think the difference these teams have to figure out is, and I think, and you're going to see, and you see this a lot often with like Tua and Darnold. Are they good enough to propel you to win you the games that you need to?
Yep.
Because, everyone wants the star quarterback. Everyone wants the franchise quarterback. Are you good enough to do it consistently enough, like we've talked about, and make the plays? Because, we've seen Kirk Cousins play well. Jeff, you talked about this. Great fantasy quarterback. Puts up 30 points a game. You see him 30 passing touchdowns. But
what does fantasy do for us? Fantasy wins you just some money. It doesn't win you championships because you're looking like I've been saying, you see these guys, and there's going to be a lot of names out there. Guys like Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford. These are all guys that are at a point that some of them are still at that like average level, and some are trying to get to that next level. And when you see guys like we said, we talked about this coming into this year, there was about 20, maybe 25 teams that we thought were set with their quarterback. Now we're looking in February, and there's about like a handful of teams. That's it. You would say the 4 teams that were in the conference championship game. You would probably put Baltimore and Lamar, and you would put Deshaun Watson as the like maybe I would say 5 or 6 at most quarterbacks that their teams are saying, that's our guy. We're happy with them. We ain't doing anything else. We ain't making no moves, plain and simple. Those are the type of guys. And when you see a team like Kansas City, who is just dominating the league, you can't hold up. You can't wait. You have to go take those chances. Like in San Francisco, I'm sorry. I know the NBA does it with like the draft picks and stuff. Everybody's like, I don't want to trade 3 first-round picks. Well, you get a top 5 quarterback. You get the guarantee. You get the certainty. You don't get the unknown. And in a time where, like I said, the Chiefs are dominating and still kicking ass and looks like they're going to be here for a long time, you have to go all in sometimes. And for a team like San Fran, that's right there. That was right there a year ago. You go in for Deshaun Watson, you'll be seeing San Fran right back in the same situation they were a year ago, guys.
Being set at the quarterback position doesn't mean he's a superstar. You don't have to have Dan Marino to say that you're set at quarterback for the near future. Matthew Stafford, I mean, it is a very talented quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault that Detroit is Sucktown, USA. He had nothing to do with that. And what you just said, Trevor, you point out 5 or 6 teams. The Giants are like Daniel Jones is our guy. Mm-hmm. Again, for the purposes that they need, for what they're looking for. And this is where, again, you look at the Mitchell Trubisky situation again against Deshaun Watson, who's got the better career winning percentage. Again, who had a better defense? Well, over the last couple of years, you could argue back and forth even, but nonetheless, one guy's got a winning record and one guy doesn't. And the one that doesn't is demanding all sorts of things at this point.
I just think having an elite talent quarterback, though, I was just reading, and I wanted to make sure I said the words, is such a competitive advantage over anything else in the league. I don't care if you have a great pass rusher, a great running game, having an elite quarterback talent. Because if we went back and we just looked at the past Super Bowls, I guarantee 9 out of 10 years, so a decade, and you went back every year, the best quarterback or the better quarterback of those teams won Super Bowls. Very rarely do you see a middle-of-the-road quarterback win a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Trent Dilfer doesn't happen often winning Super Bowls.
Yeah, Brad Johnson.
And I'm just thinking about it. Like, go through the last 10 years and think about now. Yes, 2007 when Eli beat the Giants. But that's an outlier. That doesn't happen often. That doesn't happen that often. That a team with an average quarterback beats the team with the better quarterback. Usually, the better quarterback wins more.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that was less the case if you go back 40 and 30 years ago.
I don't know. I mean, think about
Joe Namath became a name because he beat Johnny Unitas. Good quarterbacks losing the bad quarterbacks. I mean, in my own lifetime, I watched Sims beat Elway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Again, it was a different league.
Of the time, you would see
Teddy, what we have today, NFL today, and probably for the last at least 18 years, the way this game is set up, you're right. And I think that's why you see in these last 20 years or so, better quarterback wins. It's a different league. It's a different game. It really is. And let me give you guys 4 matchups. I want to just discuss these each for a second. Mahomes versus Lamar. Now, you just mentioned, Teddy, Mahomes didn't have any running game, right? Still able to go out there and win.
Absolutely.
Lamar Jackson, great running game. He's the problem because not much of a passing game because of him.
Yeah, because if he had any passing game, now I would love to see a couple more weapons because
I need to see a true number 1 with him.
You're as good as your teammates too. Let's understand that at the end of the day, this is a team game. But being an elite quarterback with great surrounding pieces would make a difference. Because we've talked about this. People argue with us all the time. If Mahomes was on the Bears, I still don't think. Well, maybe they'd be in the Super Bowl.
I think with Mahomes on the Bears, like with Watson, if Watson got traded to the Bears would be right in the top of the NFC.
Absolutely. Now, I think what Joe said, why would Deshaun Watson want to go to the Jets right now? Why? What would make you think that they're going to be a Super Bowl caliber team next year? Yeah, they got great free agency. I mean, on salary cap, but I see them if he went to Miami. I see if he went to the 49ers, teams that could win. Miami's defense is already set, and they're very young. and they have a lot of good pieces and have the right coach. The 49ers, still really young, got a great defense. They just, like Joe, you said before, hurt with injury. Make the smart move the business decision for yourself. Not just the money decision, but Joe, what was the other matchups you had, bud?
So I've got Josh Allen versus Daniel Jones.
Oh,
again,
Josh Allen.
Well, of course you would, but let's talk about why for a minute. Because I think these guys both were in similar situations somewhat this year, where consider this. I mean, the Giants were able to run the ball despite the fact they didn't have Saquon Barkley. It was really the passing game for the Giants. I think that was the bigger issue than the running game. Again, for Josh Allen, no running game, especially at the end of the season, had to make it happen. And I think what I'm looking to highlight is, why would you say Josh Allen over Daniel Jones? It's seemingly obvious.
Well, I would, for me personally, and then Trev, if you want to come back and then we can just discuss it, was bigger, stronger, faster, better arm, and he watching him progress from year one to year three.
That would be my one thing, plain and simple. He's improved to come in. He's improved every year since his rookie year. He started with 10 touchdowns, then went 20. Now he had 40. My thing with Daniel Jones is he had record-wise, it wasn't great, but his stats-wise look good. Then he comes into a second year. Now, I know he lost Saquon, a new system and everything dealing with COVID. I get that. But he took a step back, and that's a concerning factor for me in year two, where you want to see him. Like, there was a lot of high expectations for Daniel Jones among the NFL world. We all thought this guy was going to take that next step, and he kind of took a step back. So that's what it gets me concerned in the factor of that would be my biggest difference between Josh Allen and Daniel Jones, is that Josh Allen has taken that next step to elite level, whereas Daniel Jones is still in that middle of the pack, under that pack. Still, you're in questions.
Let me ask you both this then. Let's say we're having this conversation a year from now.
Mm-hmm.
What does Daniel Jones, numbers-wise, record-wise, have to look like for you to feel like his 2 to 3 puts him at Josh Allen level?
25. Go ahead, Trev.
No, I just want to see them. I want to see them in the playoff contention in the NFC East.
Well, they were.
I want to see them take a step back. I want to see his numbers at least like his rookie year.
So mine would be
25 and like 13.
Mine would be 30 plus touchdowns, running and passing. Okay, that's got to be a realistic number. This is the NFL where we score points,
and he could run. So yeah.
So he should be able to get 4 to 5 rushing touchdowns. He's athletic enough. We saw that when he had that run against Philly when he went 78 yards before he stumbled on that blade of grass. It was like, oh wow, this guy is pretty fast. All right, so 4 to 5 rushing touchdowns, which is very capable. Okay, I mean Brady gets 3 rushing touchdowns a year and he can't move on quarterback sneak, so he should be able to get 4 to 5. He should, based on what we think what the Giants are going to do, free agency, offensive line better, and Saquon, he should have 25 touchdown passes, and he should be anywhere to 10 to 15 interceptions. I think that's fair. 15 should be your high. 10 will probably be where it would be you exceed. That would also be, hey, no high throws, deflections. As we know, the difference between 10 and 15 is a couple deflections, and a couple high throws, or a guy runs a slant when you think he's running the fade and the quarterback throws the ball. And that's easily understandable, and we'll look at that. But also, and I think the Giants' record should be 8-8, because if you're good enough, a quarterback should win you 3 to 4 extra games a year. That's what an elite quarterback. Joe, we talk about this in baseball. Use it as a war situation. What would Patrick Mahomes be on a different team? Would the Giants be 9-7 this year if Patrick Mahomes on the Giants? Maybe, right? Would Mahomes give the Giants 3 more wins? I think so. I truly believe so. Now, do I think they're 11-12 win? Nah, they're not that good.
That's what I'm trying to say with all these quarterbacks, is that you're seeing like Patrick Mahomes dominate. You're seeing the Chiefs really just take the league by storm, and everybody's just like under them in the sense of like where like these teams have to go find that next guy, like Deshaun Watson. He can go to a team and go to like a San Fran, go to a Chicago, makes them a contender, a Super Bowl contender right off the bat. You almost have to go all in. You can't sometimes settle and be conservative. You have to be aggressive in this certain case when it comes to a quarterback, because you need to know if this is the guy. Like the New York Jets are in a tough situation right now, because do they want to keep Sam Darnold again? Now I know they got the new coaching staff, or are they going to draft a quarterback, or are they going to trade? You don't want to have situations like that in here. You don't want to have those situations like the Browns. Well, up until maybe, I don't know, the past couple months, we were saying the Browns, this might be Baker Mayfield's last day. I think the Browns found the guy, and we
Trev,
talked about that.
And I'll let Joe come out. Trev, I think the Jets are in a good situation. I don't think they're in a bad situation. The reason why I say that is look at it from this. You just gave me 3 possibilities. So first thing you do is you trade Sam Darnold, the number 2 pick, and a bunch of other picks, and you go get Deshaun Watson, which that's A+ in the hole. You get the elite quarterback. Now you don't have to worry about it, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2, you keep Sam Darnold, you keep the 2nd pick, and you build within. Or, which we know happens a lot, that's a win because they still have a lot of holes and they have a lot of picks. The other thing is you trade the number 2 pick, you keep Sam Darnold, and you get more assets for your quarterback to build. So it's a win-win. And if you don't think Sam Darnold's a guy, draft another quarterback. And having a quarterback
in the sense of that like you thought that this was going to be the guy, and now you're coming into year 4, and you're like, uh-oh.
Listen,
we're gonna have to go back again to the drawing boards.
Why not? At the end of the day, I liked what we used to say. I would draft a quarterback every other year or every year until you found the right guy, because that's why we talk about every year why quarterbacks get moved up in the draft board. That's why the Jaguars getting the number 1 pick is so valuable. I mean, if the Jets wanted to save pieces, just say, hey, I know the Jaguars still wouldn't do it, but would you give up next year's first round and the 2 first-round picks to move up to number 1 to go get Trevor Lawrence? I don't think the Jags would still do it, but I'm just saying that's the importance of having a Deshaun Watson, a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen.
And that's what I'm going to say. How many, realistically, like you look at everybody else, and then you say about maybe 5 quarterbacks: Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, Josh Allen. You would say Russell, and you would probably say Watson and maybe Lamar right under that. But other than that, everybody else, it's like those are the elite ones. I would say those are the elite quarterbacks without question. And then the other ones are like they're still trying to get to that next step. Like Josh Allen took that next step this year. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are still like Derek Carr, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, who have taken step back.
Yeah, but do you ever notice how we talk about the top 5 quarterbacks in football?
Yeah.
And right, it's sometimes like we'll bump somebody in, we got to bump somebody out. We don't ever talk about 6 through 10.
No,
we don't even talk about that.
It's like kind of like
hold on. It's a punishment. It's a punishment if I drop you to number 6.
No, I think, Joe, we do personally because, like we say, like the Falcons, I would put Matt Ryan in that top 10. He had a really good season, but that team and the coaching and the games that they blew this year are mind-boggling. But you think about that team, right? They have elite receivers. They had a decent running game. Okay, you have Matt Ryan, you had a decent offensive line, but their defense is putrid, and maybe the wrong leadership in the coaching, because we knew that the Giants were awful the last 4 years, and then we got a new coach, and it was like, wow, the personnel hasn't changed that much, but we were much better, even though the record wasn't that great. But you can look eye test and say that's a better football team than it has been the last 3 years.
I've seen several mock drafts where Justin Wilson goes to the Falcons.
Zach Wilson?
Justin Wilson.
I think you were mixing Justin Fields and Zach Wilson together.
Thank you. Yes, there you go.
A hell of a combo.
Yeah, when I saw that mock draft, I was kind of surprised to see that Zach Wilson was going higher than Fields because he is the Atlanta kid of Fields. I'm surprised. People like that type of quarterback.
But I don't like. Why would Atlanta draft a quarterback now?
Because why would the Packers draft
Matt Ryan?
For no reason. It was a stupid move. They certainly could have added another piece for Aaron Rodgers and not even had a quarterback controversy because he's amazing and he can play for 3 or 4 more years. They created the controversy all on their own. There was no reason to draft a quarterback there, and he was right. And if they were smart, they would trade him. They trade the kid, get rid of him. You don't even need him.
So this is what I would ask you. You want to be the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Giants and wait too late to draft a quarterback? Or would you rather be too early? I'd rather be early. I'd rather have my guy learning from a veteran because if you think about it, Aaron Rodgers sat 3 years behind Brett Favre before he even took a snap. 3 years. And I think maybe 4 years. I looked it up. I forgot. Uncle even Jerry told me this.
That's the old NFL. We don't get that anymore. You get 4 starts and we're deciding what you are no matter what.
It's true.
But hey, the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round and they just gave Carson Wentz a deal. So my thing is this: keep drafting them because if your starter stinks like Carson Wentz did, You put the rookie in, find out what you got, and then you know what you do? You ship Carson Wentz, and you go get tons of assets for a quarterback, because I guarantee if Philly put Carson Wentz on the market, they'd be talking about multiple first-round picks.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I want to get into our next point about this whole quarterback situation. Risk versus reward. And what I mean by that is, me and you were talking about it the other day, Ted, in the sense of, would we pay these guys too soon or wait? Or, like I like to say, should teams go more in the Dallas-Washington direction? And what I mean by that is the sense of, look at what Dallas has done. They haven't paid Dak. They franchised him, still have him, but paid him, but he hasn't paid a long term. Look what Washington did. Now, I know Washington's still looking for a quarterback, but they always never paid Kirk Cousins to a long-term contract. So would teams go more in that sense of the direction? Or have you seen the Rams? Look at the Rams right now. Look at the Eagles. They're in a tough situation, and Matt Ryan is another Falcons, because they gave him these big contracts, and you're going to see guys in the next couple of years, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, are these teams. Now, I know they'll say, oh, these are our guys going forward, but is it too soon to be signing these guys long-term in the sense of, what if they did like Carson Wentz? We all thought, oh, wow, this guy's going to be the future. Now we're talking about, is he going to be a Philadelphia Eagle by next year? Jared Goff, oh, it looks like he's the new Rams quarterback for the future. Now we're saying, is he going to be the Rams quarterback coming in? So is it risk versus reward to pay a young quarterback, or should you hold off?
Well, of course, it's you should hold off. You should hold off as long as is humanly possible. You need to make sure that that's definitely the guy. And then once you see it, you end up being the Cowboys, where you're screwed, and now you have to really overpay if the guy becomes like a superstar. That's the risk that you run.
I don't think Dallas is screwed. I wouldn't say Dallas is screwed. I think Dallas.
Dude, the money that guy's looking for, the money Dak Prescott wants to sign a long-term contract in Dallas at this point now, crippling to their financial structure. So I just it hamstrings a lot of other moves for them.
But you just said you would wait.
If they would have done it 2 years ago, when he was already an all-pro and a top 5 quarterback in the league, then you would have got him for cheaper. So you would have got him for his prime year. So again, I think once you establish he's the guy, once you're like Pat Mahomes the guy, give him a 25-year contract, whatever. Do whatever you got to do. But you have to identify it first. And then you have to pay. Because again, if you don't, his value is here. Now you're paying for a quarterback. I mean, again, what does he want? $40 million a year? He's not going to get it, but he's probably going to get about 35.
So I want to just read this. I just want to explain where the quarterback market has gone. So back in 2019, Eli Manning became the top player at $16.25 million as a quarterback. Think about that now, guys. 10 years later, what the market is now, almost $25 million more. 2010, Tom Brady became the top paid. Then 2011, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees in 2012, and eventually the market was capped by Aaron Rodgers in 2013. Eventually surpassed by Andrew Luck in 2016. Then he got beat out by Derek Carr in 2017 and reset the market, jumping over $30 million. What I mean by that is, and why I say that is, that's the risk you get for waiting for a guy. Because Joe, like you are, said, if you paid Dak 2 years ago, right, you're paying him $25 million a year instead of $40 million a year. But my question to you would be, if you wait like Dallas and Kirk Cousins, right, or like the Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team did, right, and you find out that if you keep waiting, because think about it, if he's not a first round quarterback, it's a 4-year deal, guys. It's a 4-year deal. If he's a first round quarterback, which a lot of teams, that's why they want to take the quarterback, is you get the 5th year option, which is huge. Now, the reason why I would say with the Ravens to wait another year is, one, because of salary cap, they have other guys to win now. Plus, what we've talked about before, what has he really won yet? That is why I say with Dak, I think it all depends on the team and the situation. All right. I think with Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, it was good to pay those guys. I think you know what those guys are, Russell Wilson. But I think when you look at guys like Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, are those guys that you really want to pay early and know that for the next 5 years, that's your quarterback. That's fine. You know who your quarterback is. But you're going to get mediocrity or average. And then once in a while on a Monday Night Football game, You're going to get elite level, but you know where you're going to be consistent. You're not going to be great, and you're not going to be low, but you're going to be average. You're going to be the Kirk Cousins level. That's what they used to say the Matt Ryan level. Where do you want to be? Here's my thing. Hold on, Trev, 1 second. I would just say, I would want to wait. I would want to wait because the way I look at it is this. I still have control of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson for 2 more years. All right? They're up for extensions this year. These 2 teams are still in a winnable mode now. Now, I know if they sign an extension, it doesn't kick into their rookie contract is over. So, really, if they got a 5-year extension, it would be the 2 years plus the 5 years they get. So, it would be really a 7-year deal. So, you'd have them control for 7 years. But what if Lamar breaks his leg or tears his ACL next year, right? In which anything can happen.
I mean, look at Dak.
And he's not the same quarterback. And then you pay him. And his best ability is what? His ability to run. Now, all that money you forked up, just like the Ravens did with Joe Flacco when he won the Super Bowl, your team takes a big hit.
Yeah.
So it's a really tough situation because players want to get paid now because there's no guarantee tomorrow, which we know that. But the teams have to think about the long-term investment. And it all depends on where you're coming from.
See, I know
I want to get paid early. But
I know that the Bills, I feel like the Bills are gonna, without question, sign Josh Allen long term. I think this year really proved it that he's taken that next step to where they want to be, which is getting to a Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl with him, and being one of the best in the game. He looks like he's going to be around for a long time. Lamar, I know he's got the MVP, but there's still uncertainty with him. Can he win a big game like that? And he had an opportunity this year and kind of bit him in the butt. But I'm a big Lamar fan. I mean, I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to be a Baltimore Raven for the rest of his life. But we got to see more from him. Where Josh Allen, I think, really took that step and really proved it. My thing with Dallas and Dak, Dallas screwed themselves because of plain and simple paying everybody other than Dak. I mean, they paid Zeke, big money. They paid DeMarcus Lawrence, big money. Who else?
Lyman, Zach Martin.
They put Jalen Smith. They paid everybody other than Dak. It just shows that they've probably, and maybe still to this day, I don't know what they're going to do this offseason with him, but it still seems that they're not completely sold on him. Like, that's what I'm trying to say with all these quarterbacks. There's good quarterbacks, Joe. After 6 through 10, there's still good quarterbacks. But there's a certain other level of, like, where I say Mahomes,
there's nobody to write home about. And if you're not in the top 5, then your team's probably not going to be very good. And I'm just in the NFL of now.
Mm-hmm.
If your quarterback's the top 10,
yes.
I don't see you making the postseason.
And that's why you have to live with, hey, listen, I'm going to wait out, and then guess what? If he is not good enough, you're going to have to let him walk and draft a new quarterback.
Like, Arizona's in a tough situation coming soon because, I mean, he took a good step this year in the right direction, but he still has he's gotten injured. He is a smaller quarterback. He's the smallest quarterback we've ever seen in the game. What do? That's another big question coming soon because they're going to eventually either have to sign him or let him play out his rookie contract. That's another guy that we haven't even talked about because you don't want to be like the Eagles. You don't want to be like the Rams right now in kind of salary cap hell because nobody wants to take – who's going to really go trade for Jared Goff? Matthew Stafford? Half of the league is already trying to go after him. Jared Goff? I don't think a lot of suitors are going to be like, oh, God, we got to go get Jared Goff. So you see those two guys. Yeah, they had good seasons going up to that big contract that they deserved, but now look at them. They got paid, but they've taken drastic steps back to average quarterback play. And that's where it comes down to with guys like Josh Allen, who took that next leap, like we thought with Carson Wentz, like we thought with Jared Goff, but then they kind of just went backwards. That's what I'm trying to say is with Josh Allen, if they give him that big contract, which Josh Allen are we going to see? Are we going to see the Josh Allen that is going to probably finish in the top 3 in MVP this year? Or are we going to see the Josh Allen that coming into this year, we were like, are we sold on him?
Yeah, but look, you could probably go team by team.
Yeah.
Look at the Jets. I mean, what a dumpster fire that place is. You know what I mean? You could go team by team, literally, and explain. Again, I already did it with the 49ers. So you look at all the injuries to Jimmy G, to all the running backs, to all the guys on defense.
I would move on from him. I would move on from him.
That's fine. But again, I mean, you could easily explain a lot of the step backs for a lot of the teams, including the Patriots, who lost the greatest quarterback of all time.
Well, their biggest problem
replaced him in the last day possible with a quarterback who's already worn welcome everywhere he's ever been, Cam Newton, not for nothing. So an impossible task there as well. I mean, literally, look around the league. You could say the same thing about the Eagles, about the Cowboys, about the Redskins, about the Bears. I see young quarterbacks or second, third, fourth year guys where there's injuries, where there's insufficiencies management, those teams are struggling. Those quarterbacks back. Baker Mayfield took a step forward of all people. Yeah. So does that mean he's a better quarterback? Well, no, of course he isn't. But he was in a better position and he stepped forward. Here's the other point. Not everybody's going to get to step forward because their team sucks. And only a certain amount of teams can step up. Some teams, of course, will, by virtue of other going up, will have to go down. That's just how it works.
It's tough. It's a tough situation for
every
all these
team should be analyzed individually before you can decide whether or not you're going to bust somebody out.
Well, see, so let's just do it for one quick second because we started. This came because me and Trev said the Dak and Kirk Cousins thing because that feels like the most too common, right? The guys that the teams kept franchising, you know what I mean, on 1 year guarantee deals, and they didn't give these guys extension, but they paid other guys on the team. Are those two guys good enough for big extensions? Because here's the thing: they said, would the Cowboys be a better team if Matthew Stafford is their quarterback? That was one of the questions. He's from the Texas area. Nate Burleson came out and was like, listen, the reason why we lost games wasn't Matthew Stafford. And if you look at Matthew Stafford's got tons of fourth quarter comebacks.
I would take Stafford over Dak.
Yeah, listen, he's just the Herbert of now. That's what Justin Herbert, Matt Stafford in due time, I believe.
I mean, here's a perfect example. You're the Colts right now. You got a winnable team, right? You got a good offensive line, you got a young running back, and you have some really nice defensive pieces, and you got a great offensive coach in Frank Wright. You go get a guy like Matthew Stafford. That's why they went for Rivers. But you go get a Matthew Stafford, and I think right now, with the way what's going on in that NFC South, you become the number one, you become the top team in that division easily. I think you're the better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. That's how I personally feel. I think Ryan Tannehill is a good quarterback. Listen, this is the difference. He's a really good quarterback.
Is he great enough?
Derrick Henry's not his running back. He becomes the same quarterback he is in Miami.
Is he great enough? That's what.
Is he?
But see, that's what you're talking about. And here's the problem we're going to run into. See, if we're trying to compare everybody to Mahomes,
no, you can't.
And Lamar,
you can't.
But hey, he's not great. Who are you referring to? What standard are you referring to? You're the Mahomes standard.
I'm not.
Means everybody comes up way short.
I think of this. You got to take out the first 4 or 5, Joe. Like we said, take out the first 5. We know what they are: Rodgers, Russell, Mahomes. You want to put Brady in there? Those are the 5. You can't touch them because those are elite. That's what called elite is. Those are the top. Then there's everyone else. There's that second tier, which I would consider Carson Wentz was once at. All right, I think Dak is close on that fringe. Matt Ryan. I think Justin Herbert could be. He's still too young to be in that tier, but he's right where you want him to be. I think Kyler Murray's in that second tier. Josh Allen is definitely in that second tier. He's on the fringe of going into that number 1 tier. I would
put Watson and Josh Allen in the tier.
Here's the thing I would say with Watson, Trip. The reason why I don't put him in tier 1 yet is because he hasn't really won anything. Okay. The skills and the attributes that he has an athlete are tier 1. But until you, like we say, Lamar, I wouldn't put Lamar in a tier 1 because as me and Joe have discussed multiple times, and you have kind of agreed, and we kind of go back and forth, the skills are there. We know that. That's why they are a starter. That's why they're NFL talent. That's why they were first-round picks. But are you good enough to win the games in the bottom of the ninth when there's 2 strikes? Can you get that clutch hit? Can you make that throw on 3rd down? Can you make the play when your team needs you the most? That's why certain guys are elite. Like, as much as we bashed Eli, when there was key plays that needed to be made in major situations, 4th quarters, Super Bowls, playoffs, he made the plays. Now, during the regular season, did he throw 4 picks in a game? Absolutely. But you know what people would say? They'd rather have Eli Manning in the 4th quarter on the last drive than Peyton Manning. It's not like it's a 70-30. That's closer to 50-50 or more Eli. It's been said, they have talked about that. Eli was great when it mattered most. That's what.
Sometimes the best thing to make those quarterbacks really show their true colors is a little change of scenery.
And something that
a little change of scenery could really change that.
Tell me which quarterback has had great success when he changed Joe Montana? Nope.
Yeah. Joe Montana.
Josh Rosen?
No, Joe Montana. Phil Rivers.
I'm talking like these bigger. I'm not like
what quarterback ever had changes? Like, oh wow, everything's all changed now. How about when Bledsoe left New England and went to Dallas? How'd that go?
Well, that wasn't good. But I'll tell you this. So you got Tom Brady.
When a quarterback gets a change of scenery, you done messed up, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because great quarterbacks don't change scenery.
Haskins is going to get not for a good reason.
We haven't had a quarterback that's 25 years old, literally on the fringe of being a top 5 quarterback in the league that wants to get out. And come on. The Lions, I'm talking about Stafford too. Look at the 2 franchises. The Lions, we just talked about it. They've been an atrocity. They've been a joke forever. I'm sorry, Lions.
Great quarterback.
And then look at Houston the past couple of years. I mean, they were a playoff contending team. Now all of a sudden they've become an absolute laughing stock. It's a terrible time to be a Houston Texan player right now or a fan because it's not a fun time. Just like being a Detroit Lion fan, it's just never been good. Just ask Barry Sanders, ask Andre Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, all these guys that were such great Hall of Fame type talents that just went to waste because they were in crappy situations. Sometimes you just got to go take a chance and go do something new and find somewhere new.
The thing is, though, unlike any other sport, when you find a quarterback in the NFL and he's your guy, he doesn't go anywhere. The only time he goes anywhere is when he's 34, 35, 36 at the end of the career and you draft someone. It just doesn't happen. So that's why we're in unprecedented time right now. And I totally am loving this. You know, I don't like sometimes how it's done in football. In basketball, where these guys like.
Well, we never see this in football.
No, I know.
No, here's the
I like it because guys are starting to take control. Because here's the thing. Trevor, I was talking to Dad about this. If I'm an NFL player, look at it from your perspective, right? You have a short career. Could be anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And if you're a quarterback, maybe 10 to 15, right? You got a short window to make money and win. Now, at the end of the day, you want to do both, one way or another. I like to win a little bit more than to make the money because I'm remembered more for what I've done on the field and winning than I did for my money in my pocket. So to see a guy finally take control and say, you know what, I'm sick of this. Because think about this. I'm going to steal this from someone. Where in the world where your job tells you what you do? Think about it. When you went into the world after 18 and you graduate college, you pick out what job and where you want to go. And if you don't like it, you quit or you leave and you go somewhere else. Only in the NFL is the team dictates where you go and how much you make. Think about that. You're a young guy, like, right? And you get drafted by the Jets. You're like Sam Darnold. You're thinking, oh my God, this is gonna be great. And you just get killed, bro. You got an awful ownership. You got awful coaching. You got no person around, and your career is ruined like this. That's why these guys.
Colin Cowherd said it best, bro. Listen, hold on. Colin Cowherd said it best. A high school recruit has more power than an NFL player.
Yeah, fix that here.
Fix that here.
Listen, first of all, I want to just dispel a couple of things. Number one, that team was 21-10 previous 2 seasons.
Who?
Houston Texans.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I know.
Now, hold on. He has 1 season where things don't go the way he wanted them to, and he wants out.
I think this is more than just
hold
win.
Hold on a minute. A 25-year-old guy, one bad year, they shouldn't have traded Hopkins. I think they realize that now. They fired their coach. But 1 bad season, and this malcontent wants out.
I think this is deeper, though, than just winning and losing, Joe.
But it's not. So hold on.
I think
he wanted to decide who the GM was going to be. He wanted
to have
something. And I think the coach that they hired was meant as some sort of appeasement to him. We'll hire a black coach for a black quarterback. Maybe that'll make him happy. And it didn't.
Well, he had Leslie Frazier and enemy.
Literally after 1 bad year, Deshaun Watson wants out.
I think this
And
is deeper. I really do.
It might be. It might be. But listen, you are the player. That's how this works. Did you know in the NFL, when you're injured, they only guarantee your contract for 42 days? And if you're out for the year with no guaranteed money, they can just waive you now. When you talk about investing in these young quarterbacks, giving them a big deal, what is it the guys really want? They want guaranteed money.
Yeah,
you get most of it up front. What's even the motivation going forward year after year? That they could cut you at the drop of a hat, absorb a cap hit, and you don't mean anything. So the system has always been terrible in the NFL. My issue here with Watson is, and as of a few days ago, I was like, well, look, he hasn't said anything formally that he wanted to be traded. This could all be just the team posturing and the media getting involved. Then he came out and literally asked to be traded. Is that do you want to trade 3 number 1 picks to get this amazingly talented guy? What if you go 6-10 next year because you lose a couple big defensive players and you just blew your wad on draft picks? Now you don't even have the ability to help him the year after. What's he gonna say then? He's gonna want out again.
No, but like if he got traded to like San Fran or Chicago, they won't be a 6-win team. If he goes to the Jets, that's probably the same situation in Houston. I could see them being 6 wins. But you go to a team like San Fran or the Bears, plain and simple. You go from a team that is there but not yet there. You get him. You go to that next tier.
I don't like 25-year-old malcontents. I don't. I think the worst thing that happened to the NBA was what happened around 2000, 2002, where guys started demanding their release and negotiating a payout. Wait, you want me to release you from your contract and give you like half the money? What? The day the NBA started doing that was the day it all went to Trash City. So I am not an NBA guy.
But here's the thing, though. So, and I understand your point, because here's the thing. You're also the same guy that just signed a 4-year, $110 million guaranteed last year extension. Don't forget, he just signed the extension last year. All right. So you got your money, right? Now, I told Trev this. I said, so if you want to play hardball, right, and you say, well, I'm not going to sign the extension, you know what they do? They lowball you and they franchise you, which means you only get the 1-year guarantee. And we know with the NFL, we want guaranteed. That's what they want. They want what NBA and the baseball have. They want long-term guaranteed because they know their future is not guaranteed tomorrow. So you can't have it both ways to make your money. But the problem is it's all favored toward the owners for total control. The only thing I will say with this is everything I've been reading about this is guys like Andre Johnson to come out and people who know who Andre Johnson is, a very quiet spokesperson who will be in the Hall of Fame one day, says that the Houston Texans organization itself, not the coaches, the organization ruins players. So it'd be like Derek Jeter coming out, but like, you know what? The Yankees organization ruins players when you go there. If that holds so much value to other players and younger players. And I think this is deeper than just winning and losing, because if it was about, he's been in the playoffs like 3 years in a row. They've been a 9, 10, 11 win team. I just think this is deeper. I think this has to do with an infrastructure of organizational things. And, you know, we're not going to talk race on this show because we don't talk about that. But there could be a big thing with race because with the McNair family. You know, the son took over. There's been a dysfunction not only internally, but I think personnel-wise. I mean, to see J.J. Watt say on the last game of the season, put his arm around the young kid. Now, J.J. Watt is one of the greatest Samaritans on the United States, has done so much well. There's not a bad thing you can say about it. For him to put his arm around this young and say, I'm sorry, we wasted a year of your career, speaks volume to me personally as a fan. And if I'm a co-player, I'm like, shit, that resonates. That resonates to me. And I think guys, if usually when guys ask for trades, usually there's a backlash. A lot of people side with the owners, say, oh, you're being selfish or whatnot. You really haven't heard any backlash toward what Deshaun Watson has done or said. But you really haven't hit on him hard. You haven't really bashed him. You're just saying, hey, listen, you're 25 years old. You've had a pretty good career for the most part. Yes, we just traded your best weapon away last year. We did give you a $110 million guarantee, though. Now, we're trying to fix things with the new personnel, the new GM, the new coach. Try to write it out with us. Let's see what happens. He's like, screw that.
All in all, this is only the first week of this. We have a lot more to talk about this for the next couple months. So MLB, NBA, NHL, good luck. Because once again, the NFL will be dominating the headlines. Like I said, we're not even going to be talking about the Super Bowl today. We're going to be talking about that all next week. So that should be quite a ride. And this offseason is going to be one hell of a ride. I cannot wait. We just talked about one player. There's going to be a boatload of movement in this coming offseason. So I can't wait. Let's see what happens. But let's move on.
Hey, before you cut the show off, I just want, and before you
cut the show, we're going to the next thing.
I want to ask you two more things. What team do you want to see Deshaun Watson play for? What team would you want to go see Deshaun Watson play for? If you were doing a franchise on Madden or a fantasy thing, and you could say, I would love to see this player go here for his career and just overall success, where would you honestly want to see him go?
Carolina Panthers.
Indianapolis Colts.
I love it. I like that, Joe, because you got a running game, young team,
I would like to see Carolina with them. I don't know. I don't know. Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. And with Matt Rule, that's a young and exciting team. If you get a Deshaun Watson,
the Colts have weapons everywhere.
I can't see the Texans trading Deshaun Watson to their own interdivision team and playing him for the next 2 years for 2 times a year for the next 10 to 12 years.
Honestly,
there's no way that will happen.
I want to see him to go to the NFC West, either the Rams or the 49ers.
I want to obviously see him play in New York with the Giants, but we know that's not going to happen.
No,
I can dream. Like, speaking of dreaming, though, that's all that Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, and Curt Schilling are going to be doing, is dreaming. Because there's no chance, as Vince McMahon's theme song once said, no chance in hell that these guys will be making the Hall of Fame, as they did not again, and for the first time since 2013, the 4th time overall since 1968, that there were no new Hall of Fame members. So we talk about this. The highest was Schilling. He's been on the 9th year ballot, just like Bonds and Clemens. Schilling was 71%. He was the highest. Bonds was at 61.8. Clemens was at 61.6. My question to you, it's not even about that. It's about the guys that are coming in next year. A-Rod, Ortiz. You could put Teixeira, but the 2 main guys is A-Rod and Ortiz. And these are 2 guys that were associated. We already know that A-Rod took steroids. But David Ortiz, sorry, Red Sox fans, for all you delusional and naive Red Sox fans who don't think he never took steroids, he was still part of that steroid era. So what does it do for guys like that coming next year?
Well, look, clearly at this point, we haven't established what we're doing with these guys. I told you pre-show, they were quick to dismiss Mark McGwire right off the ballot. All he did was hit home runs, no defense, and so they were easily able to push that one aside. Everybody just pretended Mike Piazza's name never got linked to steroids. We just threw him a free pass just cause. There's no rhyme or reason behind it. And Teddy, you've said this before. You mentioned it earlier, and you're exactly right. This comes down to guys that were breaking and setting records, and we have a real issue with that. But Major League Baseball also doesn't have the balls to strike the records. You could easily take their names right out of the record books and pretend none of that counts. But since you don't do it, I don't understand why you don't just put these guys in. We all know, and our kids and our grandkids will all know who these guys are, what the suspicion was, why it took these guys 10 ballots to get into the Hall of Fame. Even, you know what I mean? Even if you didn't know, you'd look at it and be like, how come the all-time home run leader didn't get in until his 10th ballot? Or a pitcher with 354 wins, and he got in because of the Veterans Committee, like 15 years after he retired. People will figure out that people will understand that something's wrong. As for Ortiz and A-Rod and Manny when he comes up, and any of the other guys who have failed tests or been linked to steroids,
been associated.
I mean, we have to make a decision here. the Schilling, Andy Pettit thing, you could argue both of those guys were borderline cases to begin with. And so if you're telling me, well, Andy cheated, I don't like what Schilling says, in real life. But
I think that's the main reason why Curt Schilling is not in the Hall of Fame. It's because of his political beliefs.
Same thing with Andy Pettit. Andy Pettit admitted using steroids once. Nobody believes he did it just the time, so we're willing to ignore 264 wins and 19 more in the postseason because, I don't believe him. Piazza, though, yeah, I'm fine with that guy.
What are you brewing up, Ted?
Frank Thomas never did steroids. He was always a big guy. How do you know that? What? I mean, people, how can you arbitrarily decide who's a steroid guy, who's not? The all-time hits leader? No, don't put him in. When he was a manager afterwards, he bet. Now, again, if you look at all of these guys, what is the number one thing holding them all back? Barry Bonds, douche. Clemens, douche. Schilling, douche. Pete Rose, douche.
Oh, yeah, they're all...
One of those four guys has ever looked in the mirror and been like, could it be me?
Do you think
I be the problem in this
get a better
situation?
chance of getting in?
No, I think
if Barry Bonds went on 2020 and he was like, I did use steroids, that Balco thing, it was wrong. I feel like such a jerk for it. I'm coming clean. Everybody knows how good I was. I want to be in the Hall of Fame. I shouldn't have lied. I shouldn't have done that A-Rod BS. I was a douchebag as a player. I was mean to the media. My teammates hated me. But look, you know how good I was. Please. I know I suck as a human. And I tarnished my godfather and Hank Aaron, but can you cut me some slack? I'll bet you he would jump up 15% in the voting next year.
No, I bet.
You know what we like in this country, Teddy? We like when people apologize. All we talk about, you got to have personal responsibility. Own up. Yeah, we'll do it. Just do it. Hey, Roger, there's so much evidence against Clemens and Bonds. So much evidence. And nobody believes them when they say no. So I think say what you did.
I think it would hurt him, Joe. I think because you've already gone this far and said
we already know.
I know, but
A-Rod will get in before either one of those two guys do. Because A-Rod finally, not only did A-Rod admit and apologize for doing it, he's apologized for being a lying sack of dog do.
Well, here's the other thing. I think, and I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy, I think Ortiz might get in before A-Rod because there is no positive test. And think about how well David Ortiz is liked. You know what I mean? Take away the steroids and stuff. He's so well liked. Now, A-Rod has kind of resurrected his overall appearance and likeness.
Reputation.
On ESPN, through the MLB Network, working on TBS or Fox, wherever he's on. He has kind of like, oh, this guy's actually a pretty cool guy. I think married to J-Lo has helped him change as a person. He's not.
That will change a lot for a human being.
It's not all about him anymore. Did you see him at the inauguration?
No.
Where it's like J-Lo and Lady Gaga and Joe Biden and
George Bush. He wasn't the biggest name there.
Yeah, and A-Rod's just kind of like standing off in the background like, oh, yeah. Like every other doofus husband that was there with some powerful woman. It's humbled him, and it's made him likable. And not for nothing, his analysis of baseball,
phenomenal.
Really he's really good at the booth.
He's the Tony Romo.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that because I think Romo's great too.
So
I like Romo so much more now because of how good of an announcer he is.
Yes, absolutely. And I think he carries Jim Nantz.
Yeah.
Because I watch
Jim Nantz the putts.
So with that being said, the question will be is what is the percentage that these guys start off with? That's really the key. Are they at the 50% mark right on year one? Are they below 50%? Are they at 25%? Where are they going to be? And I'm talking about A-Rod and Ortiz. That'll be a really, really interesting part. Now, do I think Schilling's not going to get taken off the ballot? He's going to be on the ballot next year, and he's probably going to get voted in. The question
I don't think he is.
Oh, no, I think he will be. I think he will be, and we'll see how much of a tough guy he is when they elect him. And you go, what are you going to do? You going to reject it? Or is he going to reject it? Because they're not going to take him off the ballot. I like what Michael Kay said the other day. He'll probably get in. He'll probably get right to the 75. He'll be like 75.5. And you know what? Come on, tough guy. You don't want to be in? Let's see if you really deny the Baseball Hall of Fame.
He himself has said that he doesn't consider himself a Hall of Famer.
Can I tell you something though? What I remember as a young kid, he was one of the 3 or 4 best pitchers every year from the time he ended at the Phillies to the Diamondbacks to the early years of the Red Sox. I really do. He was up there with Pedro and Randy Johnson every single year. He was a workhorse. You're
not remembering that right. It felt like that from the Diamondbacks through the Red Sox. But
you
I
remember his last couple years in Philly.
If you look, his last year with the Phillies, he made a late step in his career because when he started with Baltimore,
it wasn't good.
Before he went to, he struggled. He got to Philly. It took him some time to find himself out. He got good his last year or two in Philly, rode that through a great partnership, obviously, with Randy Johnson for a few years.
And then the Red Sox.
And then the Red Sox thing, Listen, again, for me, when I talk about Hall of Famers, I collect baseball cards. I still do. Okay? My Harold Baines cards were always in the future Hall of Famer pile. I believed he was a Hall of Famer.
I think a lot of people do.
I'll argue with anybody all day, any day. You know, now he puts up what we call fourth outfielder numbers. In the 80s, when Harold Baines played, that was superstar numbers. I mean, again, we're comparing apples and oranges. Fred McGriff, of all people, gets stuck in that weird in-between late 80s, the early 90s zone, finished his career in 2006. Same amount of home runs as Lou Gehrig. A 284 lifetime batting average.
Yeah.
5-time All-Star. Led both leagues in home runs during his career. Totally gets dismissed.
World Series champ. World Series champ, Gold Glove first baseman. I will say this, and I said it before the show, and I'll say it live on the show, is Clemens and Bonds should be in. I said to Joe, I said, think about this. If you were telling a story about baseball and you were in the chapter of the 2000s, you wouldn't be able to tell that chapter without putting Bonds and Clemens in. And, you know, Joe, you're older than me, and that's the obvious, Captain Obvious. But to me, to be able to have saw Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens pitch is probably your Pete Rose, or did you see Hank Aaron hit? Were you able to see him, like guys like him? Like, who was you saw Reggie Jackson.
I saw Reggie.
He was a home run hitter, but Barry Bonds hit for average. He had speed. He was the first 40-40 guy.
Dave Winfield's another Hall of Famer I grew up on. Exceptional athlete at 6'6", right? Was drafted by the NBA as well as Major League Baseball, and he was drafted into the NFL. Dave Winfield was an amazing athlete. Dave Winfield challenged for batting titles, hit 500 homers, 3,000 hits, amazing arm in right field, great defense. He could run, wasn't a base stealer, but he could run around the bases. Was one of the greatest players I'd ever seen in my life, for sure.
Let me ask you the last question. Is it more likely that you think A-Rod or Ortiz get in on the first ballot?
Again, like Piazza, I think Ortiz gets the pass because people like him, and even though he was on the Mitchell report, so he did fail the drug test. We know he
Ortiz,
did.
If you've learned anything about baseball guys who select the Hall of Fame, they are not coming anywhere close till after year 5.
Okay.
And I truly believe that. And I'm telling you, next year you're going to see A-Rod probably at like 52%, and you'll probably see Ortiz at like 50%.
It'll be lower.
And Ortiz at 56%. Because think about it, Clemens and Bonds only jumped up less than 2%. They jumped up like 1.5% this year from last year's. They were both at like 60, and they went to 61.6 and 161.8. Listen, Bonds, and we talked about this, it plays a part, and it shouldn't, but character plays a part. Clemens and Bonds were kind of douches while they were players. There's stories about Bonds the other day when he almost fought Jeff Kent and thing, where he had a private locker, where he didn't want to do certain interviews. You know, if Barry Bonds was a better person, that would have helped him a lot. That's why I think A-Rod is doing what he's doing now to resurrect his career and get himself in the Hall of Fame. Because here's another thing. Pete Rose is kind of a douche. He really kind of is a douche.
He still is an ass.
Every year, the day of this ceremony, you know where Pete is? He's down the street at like a Holiday Inn signing autographs. I mean, if you could be a bigger ass than that, I don't know what it is, other than standing outside with a vote me in. I mean, that would be the only thing more pathetic. I love Pete Rose. For anybody who's never read his book, My Own Prison, do yourself a favor. if you read the book, you'll realize how easy baseball made it for Pete to get reinstated. And his refusal to do what they've asked him to do, which is just acknowledge what he did, he's in. He won't do it. He stays insistent. He's got his own reality. Same thing with Clemens. Same thing with Bonds. Same thing, I would even argue, Sosa and Palmeiro. How Rafi Palmeiro with 3,000 hits and 560 home runs isn't in the Hall of Fame. I mean, again, either take those numbers out of the history books. I don't even want them to be there then. Or put these guys in the Hall of Fame where they belong and put an asterisk on it. I'm fine with an asterisk.
But to my point, and I'll finish off with this, is I can tell the story of baseball from the 98 season to 2005 and skip over Palmeiro and never mention his name. Easily.
There's
I start with
10 guys in baseball history with 3,000 hits and 500 home runs. For him to not be there, to me,
I agree.
It's an embarrassment to the game.
Well, it's an embarrassment to himself, Joe. It's an embarrassment to himself that he allowed himself to get so deep in a hole that he couldn't come out and couldn't admit it. And And it is what it is.
Now they're all being punished.
They have their own grave, and they have to live with it. They have to live with it, and it is what it is. And this is one of the most controversial things: is Baseball Hall of Fame every year.
Plain and simple. Every year. Hey, but what else is new with baseball? Baseball loves to get.
Also, I think it's time for the Baseball Writers Association of America to clean house. Let's get some real people in there that know what they're talking about. Enough of the political statements. There was the jerk off and ball. I'm going to leave Mariano off. Nobody gives a shit about you. You're a loser. This is not about you. Listen, I hate Curt Schilling. I hated him as a player. I think he's a douche and wow. No doubt about it. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Quick question, and Joe, you'll know the better answer. I wish it wasn't just the writers. I wish it was actual Hall of Famers or former players that had a vote. The reason why I say that is because no one knows how good someone is unless you were going against him competition-wise. You know what I mean? When offensive linemen say, when they went against LT, you're like, he was the best. Like those guys know the best. The guys that went against Curt Schilling will be like, okay, he was one of the best. Pedro Martinez, they know. A-Rod will say, exactly. And pitchers will do the same thing. Who was my toughest hitter? So, whatever.
I mean, like always, what else is new with baseball? Baseball's always doing – the NFL's always doing good for themselves. Baseball's always doing bad for themselves and always getting into some kind of issues.
Especially when, Teddy, too, most of these writers, the newer writers, the idiots from Deadspin, you don't even see any of these guys play. What are you even talking about? You have no idea what you're talking about. All these idiots do it. Like they read old ESPN articles. Well, I made up my mind. Get out of here, morons! Unbelievable.
I can't wait for next week. It's going to be a hell of a week to talk all the NFL and all Super Bowl 55. You get the GOAT versus possibly the future GOAT, Patty Mahomes. Boy, oh boy, the millions and millions of storylines that will be going on for next week. I can't wait. I wish the game was happening this Sunday. I'm very excited. I know Joe's level is at a 6, but I'm at a 10. I can't wait for this Super Bowl. Plain and simple. It's going to be great. We are streaming on all social media platforms at Keys to the City, including Twitch. So subscribe, comment, share, and like. Guys, stay warm up there, all right? I'm going to enjoy down here. We are Keys to the City. Clovercrest Media presents Keys to the City. We are out.
Yeah. Keys to the city, baby. When you see us, so you know you really viewing greatness in the making. Double up on facts we stating. Podcasting, cruise control, city, state, the nation. So what you saying, what we saying, prime information. Facts, keys to the city, we're unlocking the statements.
Streaming every Friday.